Good morning, hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Flynn here with Adobe Live, and I'm here with Jeremy Lord. How are you, Jeremy?
Good morning. I'm fine. How is everybody in the chat today?
Yeah, hey everyone in chat. That was pretty brutal cut off. Yeah, the Time Lords are very serious here at Adobe Live, cutting off Paul Tranny and Veronica Belmont. Sorry guys, but yeah, the timer kicks us in straight after you guys. Hi Michael, Festus, Sam, great to see you guys. Everyone in the chat who's sticking around, and if you're just joining us, we're going to be spending some time sketching today, a bit of ideation with our good friend here, Jeremy Lord. It's great to see you all, and Johanna in the chat as well. But just before we do get started, I thought I might just quickly share our schedule of what we have coming up this week. So here's our schedule over here in Australia for Adobe Live. So yesterday we had photographic-based illustration with Dale Virginie. Today we're idea development in illustration with Jeremy Lord. We're having a sketch party tomorrow morning at 9 with Bianca Beers. And then on Friday we're doing some editing in Lightroom with Ichban Benjamin Lee, who is making his working from home Adobe Live debut. And so we're going to have a lot of fun finishing off the week with Ben. Oh, my mic's a bit hot, is it? All right, let's turn this down. Nobody wants that. But yeah, Jeremy.
I'll hear you at least.
You can hear me okay, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, very good. All right, well, Jeremy, maybe we'll pass it over to you. You can kind of give us a bit of an idea of what we're going to go to do today, because we're going to do things just a little bit differently.
Yeah, so I'm not going to aim for, excuse me, I'm not going to aim for a finished idea today. What I'm going to kind of chat about today is, developing ideas, sketching, doing different versions of different things, wrapping around the same brief. So I'm going to start with a brief. Last time we were doing a, excuse me, I've got morning throat. That's horrible. Last time we were in the stream, Festus suggested an idea, mentioned something about doing a manga version of Peppa Pig. Mm-hmm. So that kind of really struck a chord with me, I think, as something that like kind of fun about taking this very child-safe, very sort of young and friendly character and turning it into something a little bit more kind of fun and adult, still safe for work, but just something a little bit more. Just a little bit more kind of up to date with this particular age group. So we're going to riff on that today, and I'm going to start. What you guys are seeing here is something that I prepped. So I've just taken this head and just ran with a bunch of different poses that I can do with it. So these poses are going to serve as a framework for us to try a whole bunch of different things. So we're basically going to play like customizing and dress up here and trying to kind of get an idea of what could this character that is going to be kind of loosely based on Peppa Pig, what can she be doing, and all these kind of different poses. There might be some that we'll reuse. In fact, there's probably definitely going to be some that we'll reuse. So what we'll do is we'll get you guys to make some suggestions as we're going along. So I'll get us started. But yeah, if you guys can make a few suggestions as to like, things like, should she be wearing a helmet, or should she be wearing a baseball cap, or like all these kind of different things. Any ideas that come to mind from you guys would be super appreciated. And we're going to try and do 6 different kind of concepts on this and see how we go. So yeah, so that's today's session in a nutshell.
Cool. And so my job is to use the timer. So I'm going to get that started. So 20 minutes. Does that make sense? 20 times 6?
Roughly about sort of 20 minutes.
All right, cool. Well, we've got a little timer started there. I can be timekeeper.
Sweet.
Just let me know if my microphone's too loud now, guys. So I'm sorry about that. It's just, yeah, having to turn the microphone down because I'm shouting in your ears is not the goal. So yeah, I'm definitely a backseat.
Sweet. Okay, cool. So we'll just get started straight away. So as I said, I've kind of done all of this. I was debating, and again, like this is just even just to kind of get it started. There was some debate when I started doing this as to whether or not she should actually have a little pig nose, and whether her ears should be little kind of like pointy pig ears. But yeah, that's starting to get a little bit too much. I don't necessarily want to do this in that way. I'm kind of just thinking it's more of a loose kind of theme of that idea. So we're going to just start with this body. And as you see, I've actually been a good boy today and named all my layers. We're just going to make a bunch of groups and just start working from that. So I've got my drawing. It's basically just a framework. And then now it's just a matter of me kind of playing dress up, I guess, and maybe trying out different kind of hairstyles or different gear, all that kind of stuff. So what we can do now is I just grab a different color, and we can literally just start getting into this and drawing like the Peppa Pig character originally has a big like dress, so like single piece dress. So I'm going to change that to a giant kind of like floating hoodie, and that's going to kind of act as that dress, and that can kind of sit. So we're going to potentially look at some referencing as well today and seeing how like we can, a lot of the stuff that we're most likely going to be doing is stuff that I've either drawn before or feel sort of relatively confident enough to draw from memory.
Do you remember Monkey and Pigsy?
I don't.
You don't? Monkey Magic? You never watched Monkey Magic? Or maybe...
No, I don't think we had that in France.
Oh, wow. It was very much a riff on... well, it's the same as Dragon Ball, right? I think it was Dragon Ball was after it. Get my timeline right. But yeah, we were just chatting about that. It's a bit like there was a character called Pigsy. It's basically a human pig.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that in manga. Like I could even just kind of give her like extra ears here, kind of like little pig ears, and that wouldn't necessarily be too much out of place. In fact, let's do that. Let's see how we go with.
How about some music?
It's probably just going to look like cat ears, but oh well. Could also kind of cut a hole in the back here and give her a nice kind of squiggly pigtail. Again, like how much of this is actually turning her like physically into a pig is one thing. It's more just like, let's see, maybe like things like this, right? Where it's like the back of her sweatshirt has a big illustration on it, and it's going to be like an illustration of a pig, for instance.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the tie-in to the brief that we're kind of talking about here.
Cool. Hey, Laurie Goodridge is in the house. Says hello.
Hey, my man, how's it going? Give us some suggestions, Loz. I know that you like a good reference that nobody gets, myself included. So chuck them in.
I can Google reference things as well, so we can figure it out together.
Yeah. Cool.
So you are taking suggestions, so we can suggest like things.
I am absolutely taking suggestions. Yeah, for sure. So again, like just trying to sort of riff on the themes here, and this is something that I would spend a fair bit of time doing when I'm doing these illustrations, and it is like, do I give her sunnies, or do I give her do I give her a bandana, like all these kind of things. It's one of my favorite parts of video games as well, is when you get a solid character creation customization screen.
Oh yeah,
is one of my favorite things to kind of mess around with.
Like Skyrim.
Yeah, like Skyrim. a lot of Japanese RPGs are really solid on that kind of stuff as well. We like change the color of the hair and the hairstyles and all the different outfits that you can collect. It's something that I really like to do, and it's like not too strangely made it into my actual illustration work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, don't worry, Amanda. I remember Monkey Magic, so me too. I'm with you. Kathleen will be interested in seeing this stream. Link to her later. Oh, why is that? Is she into pigs? I don't know if you've seen her work, Jeremy. She does some amazing stuff. She does a sketch party.
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have. Yeah, actually, yes, I've watched a couple. Yeah. So shoes again. Just a little bit of a shopping list of things.
We got some combat boots. How about combat boots from
combat boots? All right, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Combat boots. We're going to give it a bit of a higher steel toe. Again, we talked about this like a bunch of times on the stream in terms of like when do you stop and get reference versus like trying to draw it by kind of memory.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, there are pros and cons to doing it in either way. Again, with this kind of stuff, like it's always going to help if you actually go and like Google what a combat boot looks like.
Yeah.
Because it just means that it's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about like these little indentations in the bottom there are going to actually make it feel more kind of combat booty. What are the things that actually happen when you're doing this kind of stuff? Like, so generally combat boots tend to be a little bit loose at the top, so we can kind of loosen those up here with the tongue coming out. Give us some kind of high socks in there. Again, like stripes on the socks, no stripes on the socks. What do you guys think? Give her these ones. If we got combat boots, potentially she's a combat Peppa Pig, so maybe we give her like a knee pad that sits like on her here, and that just kind of fits with the theme a little bit more. All these kind of ideas that like we can really mess around with and see like how all this kind of comes together. How like hardcore is she? Is she got like spikes on the toes of the combat boots? Like all these different kind of things that can come into play when you're drawing this and can add to the character. Are really, it's like something that I really enjoy playing with.
I was laughing before because Stefano said Peppa Pig kind of looks like a pink blow dryer.
She does, yeah.
I can't unsee that now.
Yep. Yeah.
Someone's
really
drawn a pink hairdryer and animated it. Amazing.
It'd be interesting to see if that's actually the thing that gave it gave the person the idea. Is like, I'm really good at drawing hairdryers and I want to make an animation.
Kind of looks like a pig from the side. Reminds me of the Simpsons fishbowl. Fishnet stockings under the plain black grey socks.
Yeah, so we could do fishnet. We could just get rid of this actually real quick. It's not a bad idea. Give it that kind of like gothic, kind of Doc Martin 90s kind of vibe. Again, so the idea here is like, obviously if I was to do this, like quote unquote for real, is I would spend a fair bit more time trying to get the details and the proportions right and all this kind of stuff. But at this stage, when we're kind of in the ideation process on any kind of given brief, like imagining this was a commission for a client, these kind of things are perfectly viable to just leave relatively loose, because you're like, you're not sure what your client's going to pick at this stage. And so if you start going ham on one of these ideas and the client doesn't choose
go ham.
I didn't even realize it.
That's why it's good.
That's definitely going to come back. Yeah, but it just can be something that you might be wasting time working on this, and your client just goes like, "Nah, I hate it. Don't do that." And you've spent like 4 or 5 hours on it, that's not a great use of your time. So it's important at this stage to just keep it pretty loose and not necessarily completely figured out in terms of all the detail and like what goes where and how do knee pads actually look and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just a matter of working a little bit faster, a little bit looser with this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm digging that. Just got a bit of a kind of, what do we think? Do we like the glasses? Do we not like the glasses?
All right, suggestions for the head. There's always going to be like a slight delay between when we mention it and what we get back.
Well, combat boots, I feel like maybe glasses. Glasses could be cool because it's fun, but maybe she's got glasses and a helmet.
I was saying kind of a roller derby vibe happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it depends on the kind of helmet that we do, right? So if we're going for that roller derby vibe, then yeah, definitely give her that kind of like skate helmet. If it's more of a combat thing, then maybe we can go like a little bit World War II kind of actual like tactical combat gear kind of thing. All this kind of stuff can like really kind of play well together. Maybe give it the little combat goggles as well. So again, there's really no end to like all this kind of stuff and all the variations that you can try and do when you're messing around with this.
Yeah.
And then it can be, then it goes into variations on variations where it's helmet but no glasses, or helmet and combat boots but a t-shirt or tank top instead of a hoodie.
Yeah. And you can kind of do this because you've got the figure drawn underneath originally.
Yeah, exactly. I'm literally just like cutting and pasting stuff on top of it, and like I've got this on a separate layer. So at this stage, I could start a new one and try something else. But before we do that, let's just go in and give her.
We've got 7 minutes for this one, by the way.
Okay, cool. Let's see about kind of wrapping this one up. I want to give her a pistol, but again, because we're talking about kind of Peppa Pig, we don't want to go like too full on like wartime kind of thing. So I'm feeling giving her maybe like a giant super soaker, like a giant water pistol. Remember those like super soakers from the 90s? So let's go with that.
There were votes for and against glasses as well, so dealer's choice, I think, there. And Amanda was asking, what's your favorite brush to sketch with here? She likes the Carl Animator pencil.
Right now I'm just using this brush, which I've just edited myself in Photoshop.
Yep.
And so what it is, it's one of these default brushes in here. Either one of these three work or just work fine. And essentially how this looks is just gives it that kind of a rough edge. So I like to kind of sketch with that, but I've given it a few different things just to, like I've given it a bit of a rotation in the shape dynamics. So there's an angle jitter there so that it's not just too flat. It gets that kind of rough edge. And there's obviously a transfer on there as well, and it just gets a nice clean pencil-y looking vibe. But I have downloaded pencil brushes as well, like actual pencil brushes. But really at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You could really just do this with any brush at all.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine to do this because you're just doing like really basic drawing. And so brush isn't really going to make or break your work here at this stage. You're just making a mark on the page.
Yeah. Cool. You have votes for pigtails as well, of course. Good idea.
We've got pigtails coming in another one. So
we are going to do a couple of different iterations. So you've created the base body for a couple, and we're gonna do a couple of different versions. Maybe we could theme some of them. Like I'd like to see like a an evil one would look like, or like a. I know she plays a ukulele, so there could be like a musically themed one or something. What do you think?
All right.
Chat.
Yeah.
And Jeremy. The helmet's working. It's working. I like it. Curly pigtail on the back of the helmet.
Could do. Again, like, yeah, there's no end to how all this can kind of work out. Just give it a little bit of a drip.
Could also be a flamethrower.
It could also be a flamethrower. We'll just leave that to the imagination. We're not too sure.
4 minutes left.
So again, this is one of the advantages of sketching digitally is I'm not necessarily digging the angle of that too much. It doesn't really look like it's sitting in her hand as much as I'd like. And so we can just kind of mess around with the angle a little bit, play around with the size if it's a little bit too big, and just readjust things as we need them, which is one of the really cool things about sketching digitally as well is when things aren't quite right, but like the curve of something isn't quite right. Like, so for instance, let's say that I want her hair to be a little bit fuller, but I'm not too sure on how to redraw it, or I want to keep this kind of area here. You can just go into filter liquify and just push and pull a little bit around these areas with this guy, and just give it that little bit more kind of body down here and down here. Same thing here. If I want her to like have like slightly sort of fuller form, I can mess around with this kind of thing. It's a really like good way of just exaggerating poses and making sure that everything kind of looks the way you want it to. So yeah, it's one of the advantages of sketching digitally like this. And then we can just add at the end of it, let's go and do a little kind of pigtail squiggle on the helmet. A bit of a solid leather spike bracelet, keeping with the Gothic theme. Again, like when you're doing this, it's really important to remember what you're trying to do here. Like, what was your idea when you started this? Because it can very easily, and it's one of the pitfalls. I'm just talking about the advantages of digital. One of its pitfalls is the fact that there's unlimited possibilities, and so your brain can really just kind of wander off and start to go places that you might not want it to go to, or that don't really fit the brief. And so it's important when you're kind of doing this to remember, like, what was I doing when I started?
Right.
What was I trying to achieve with this particular illustration, and have I done that on here sufficiently? Cool. So
cool.
That's probably all
it's good timing. 30 seconds left on that one, on the little timer, so that's pretty well timed.
Okay. Awesome.
We were talking about brushes. We were talking about brushes before. Do you ever make your own brushes?
So what I've done with this brush is basically I've like customized an existing brush to do just that. So again, like that brush in Photoshop is an already existing brush that's preloaded. And I've just edited some of the settings to create all of this. But generally speaking, I don't necessarily mess around with custom brushes too much. I've downloaded a few very, very basic ones, but this is just me. And this doesn't necessarily mean that this is the right thing to do or anything like that. But I have a tendency to go with this thing of if you if you can't draw it with a basic brush,
Mm-hmm.
a fancy brush isn't going to help you.
Right.
The only thing that a fancy brush will do is save time. Like if you're doing like a foliage brush or grass or any of that kind of stuff, then yes, that's a great idea, and you should definitely consider doing that because it will save you time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you don't understand how a tree works or how a patch of grass works, that brush is not going to save you. It's not going to make or break your work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just tend to just stick to trying to get that that kind of wood brush nice and simple, and then I can have my line work is the thing that kind of holds it all together.
Yeah, cool.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Saying the Super Stoker is excellent. Yeah, I think that's a good addition. Absolutely. Could the next one be fat?
And again,
well,
could the next one be fat? Could be. We could have a little bit of a go.
Fuller figure.
Yeah, we could even I even considered doing something like.
Let me know when to kick that timer in as well, and I'll do the next one.
Yeah. I was considering when I started doing this, making her really kind of like cute and a little bit more chibi. So chibi is these ones that you probably seen before, where it's like the giant eyes and quite sort of large head, and tiny kind of figure. And then the body is very, very kind of simple. So there was some kind of temptation of doing something like this, where that would then kind of really become something very, very cute, and I could give a little like pig's feet if I wanted to.
Right.
But yeah, I decided just to stick with kind of classic manga, just because chibi is all fun and games, but it starts to get a little bit tricky to get expressive.
Yeah.
And there's also less room for adding details and developing concepts.
True.
So,
yeah. Reminds me of those like bobblehead things that are really popular. What are they called?
Exactly. Yeah. The pop figurines.
Yeah, the pop things. Yeah. They all look the same.
So let's start timer on this one.
Starting the timer.
I'm feeling a space vibe, so Peppa in space on this one.
Peppa in space.
Again, we've got a few other poses that we can work with over here that are a little bit less kind of finalized. So I'll get you guys to kind of give me some suggestions as we're doing that. But We'll start by the most obvious thing is give her a nice big kind of space bubble helmet. So let's get in there and do that. This is also where I will sometimes do this instead. So if I'm having a hard time drawing a nice clean circle, I'll actually use my selection tool and place that where I think it needs to be, which is about like here, nice big like bubble spacesuit helmet. And then I can come in and just draw on the inside of that, and it just keeps my circle looking nice and clean as I'm kind of sketching.
Amanda was saying it's true brushes won't do the work for you, but she's very particular about it. Don't like to sketch with something super opaque or smooth, for example. It's been a journey to find the right one. Yeah,
I think the right brush is very much a personal thing, where some people feel certain brushes, others don't. Like for me, for instance, when I'm sketching, I like to use just a slightly off black. So the default is to just go with black when you're sketching and just do like a black pencil line like this. Pencil tends to be a little bit warmer. It's got a bit of a yellow tone to it. So I will actually use a very kind of like this dark, warm gray when I'm sketching. And again, like on the screen here, you probably don't necessarily see the difference, but it just makes it makes me feel kind of good about what I'm doing. Even though nobody's really going to tell the difference, it's what you like. And I think that process of working the way you want to work and the way you like is insanely important.
Yeah.
So yeah, brushes are a very, very personal thing. I'm very meticulous and demanding about my inking brush, which I won't get into today because we're not going to have time necessarily to get to that stage.
Yep.
But yeah, if my inking brushes need to be exactly right, otherwise it's just like, nah, game over. I can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, we actually have
So
some. We've been chatting a little bit about doing some more introductory stuff to illustration as well. And one of those things we're chatting about is how to create your own brushes. So I don't know. Let us know in chat if you think that will be useful, because that's something we were thinking about spending a bit of time on, creating your own brushes, right?
Yeah,
I remember that conversation. Yeah, cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
Again, like, this is where you get stuck in, and I'm probably spending far too much time on this helmet and getting it right. But it's just one of those things that just happens when we're doing this. It can be a little bit tricky. I'd love to give her a little bit of like a voice box or something on this helmet. Just something like just sitting here, so that she can, people outside can hear her. That it might be this thing, it might be another thing. This might be a good spot to put something like little kind of pig instead of the horizontal vents.
Yeah.
Like a little like voice box that looks like a pig snout. Could
it's
be
very
that.
like Pig Universe style.
Yeah.
Like that.
And then we give her some like space suity stuff. So give her some shoulder pads. Give her a little like jetpack. She'll have jetpacks on her feet as well, but she's got to have a little space backpack of some description.
Yeah, let us know some things to add into the space theme, everyone. Sorry, I'll have a look, make sure I haven't missed anything, but let us know what to add in the space one. Cool. So vote for the tutorial on brush creation. Cool. Good to hear. I think it's an important thing to cover, because I remember doing it many years ago. It was very difficult, but it's actually quite easy now to do. And once you learn how to do it, you can play around with it. You can spend a lot of time making your own brushes.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember here is, like, it's not necessarily, when you're talking about like brush creation, the important thing is not like, I'm going to make a brush that's going to allow me to draw like concrete or something. Like some of the brushes that you will download just are ridiculous, right? Like there's a lot of brush packs that you like, smoke brushes, for instance, and they're just a photograph of smoke.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, you could just get clip art if that's what you were doing. Like that's not a smoky brush.
Right.
It's just a picture of smoke that's been applied to a brush.
And you're just dragging it around the screen, adding smoke to
and
the
it's
screen.
just making this like weird thing that has nothing, that does not look like smoke at all. So I think it's like, what the distinction when we're doing this is to remember that you're trying to create something that's going to help you, and it can be very, very basic. It could be something really, really simple, that's going to allow you to do what you're trying to do. But again, that's where I think like that thing of saying, the brush does not make the illustration. It helps, but it doesn't make it. Is important to remember, because it is, those brushes that you download are just going to make your work worse. And if you can't draw smoke to begin with, you're probably just going to end up getting a little bit lost in trying to like figure out how this works.
Yeah. It's good to keep in mind, I think. Yeah. Cool. There's quite a few people that are keen for brush tutorials. That's awesome. We'll work on that. We'll do that. That's next week, I think, isn't it? Just a bit of a sneaky peek.
Yeah.
We're going to do a little bit of that next week. So actually, what's today? Today is Wednesday. Yeah, this time next week we're going to be covering some things like that. In fact, you can let us know. Why don't we do a quick little call out if there's anything particular that you might want to learn that is like that, like if anything specific. Jeremy and I'll have a look at it and see if we can work it into a session. So let us know.
Yeah, and that'd be actually super helpful, because it just means that like I've got a few things that I'm planning on sharing and kind of getting through, but having some suggestions always is always really good to just like, what can we do?
Yep.
Yeah. So giving her like some nice, big, thick kind of space boots. And then we can maybe put some like jetpack flames are coming out. So it's got a bit of like an Iron Man vibe.
Did you ever watch The Muppets?
Yeah, a little bit.
Pigs in Space?
Yep.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
I do.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Yeah, there was some chats in talking about Into the Spider-Verse, like into the Peppa Pig verse.
Yeah, it is. I think that's the idea. That's a great animation, by the way, Into the Spider-Verse. That is just, it's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, just obviously like color-wise, but just the idea of it and the kind of fun they had with it is just absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Again, so like, this is not really like fully fledged or realized at this stage, but it probably doesn't really need to be too much. It's just some ideas of like, yeah, Peppa Pig in space. Give her a little badge of space company that we're working on. This is also where like I might have a bit of fun with this and start thinking about like what references to other things can I add into here. So maybe I will put like a little like Wayland Yutani kind of logo on her, and see, like people can just kind of pick up on that if they do or not. Again, I'd probably need to actually go online and look up Wayland Yutani logo, but little tiny references like this, which I wouldn't do if this was a client brief. Like if this was a commission from the people who make Peppa Pig, I wouldn't do that, because that obviously is completely out of place and they're going to be like, what the hell?
Right. Put a little Jeremy Lord logo on there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But if it was just me kind of messing around as we are doing now, then yeah, why not? Like have a bit of fun with it and like get your audience to spot things in there that like they can kind of discover the illustration a little bit.
Yeah.
As they're going, which is, I think, is like a super fun thing to do.
And thanks for the suggestions in their chat about some stuff. I'm collecting all this and we'll have a chat about it. Gestures and liquefy approach. We can have a look at that, I think.
Yep.
Super cool.
Give us some cool space gloves.
10 minutes on this one, as a reminder.
Sweet. Thank you. Got to attach that backpack to her, otherwise it'll fall out.
Gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. Bit of a challenge here. I'm gonna give her like this like padded spacesuit kind of 1960s spacesuit vibe. And again, these are the things that like people have seen before. It's part of that kind of collective subconscious of like, you've seen that footage of, the first lunar landing and all those spacesuits that have this kind of like padding, like the lined kind of padded suits. And so adding something like that in there, obviously, like I've got the giant like space bubble helmet thing that's going to help people kind of relate to it. But anything you can add in here that will help you kind of make your point a little bit clearer about like, this is referencing this kind of thing, is going to be a really handy thing for you to work with. The challenge with doing this kind of stuff, and this is why it's important to have that framework, especially when you're doing stripes or lines on a body. Stripes and lines really accentuate the shape of things, and so you need to be like dead sure about how shape of that body will work in those areas.
Right.
Because obviously those lines are going to work with that, and not getting those lines correct is just going to be immediately apparent that what's happening here, it's not accentuating the shape, and it will just confuse the shape even more.
Right.
So really important to kind of remember knowing your anatomy. And it's one of the things that we spoke about in a previous stream, is drawing from the inside out, which is why you see, like, on the drawings that I've done, there's this kind of sense of anatomy, like there's a hint of a rib cage there, there's a bit of a kind of a pelvis, I've got a line going down to the middle of the torso to the belly button, all these things that allow me to get the shape of all these things correctly, and then add stuff on top of it is a lot easier to get right.
Yeah. So Stefano has a great question. How do you manage to keep your work in line with the client's brief and avoid being drifted away by your willingness to explore while creating? Sometimes I feel like that can be a boundary. Any suggestions?
That is a boundary, absolutely. Whether or not it becomes a barrier is a different question. So boundaries can be great when we're talking about art, because it keeps you on brief. Again, it stops you from like drawing for ever and ever and ever and never actually getting anywhere, never actually producing something that you can hand into your client. The question with this, though, is how do you manage to get your own personality into the brief, and can you even do that on every single briefs really lend themselves to doing that? Or are there certain times where you need to kind of stick to what the client has said, and you don't want to really do that, and you think it's a bad idea, but the client is paying, so you got to do this thing? I think that's always a really tricky one. For me, the question is actually the other way around. It's not how do I manage to work my stuff into what the client's brief has done. I think from the onset, if you're getting briefed on the wrong things, then that's basically impossible. If you're, for instance, like, let's say that I want to draw this, but the client has asked me to do a brief for, a children's book for children in between the ages of like 2 and 3, then of course, like, none of the themes that I work with, like, if we have a look at my work, like, none of the stuff that I do is going to be appropriate for that. And so trying to cram Jeremy Lord into that brief is just never going to turn out well. I'm going to be frustrated. The client's going to be angry that they got this thing, and totally inappropriate for children. So the question with something like this then becomes, have you got the right brief? Like, have you been briefed for the right reasons? Which is a tricky one, because again, like, work is work, and especially when you're starting out, you need that work, and any work is still money for you to pay rent and so on. But there does come a time, especially when you're starting to get a little bit more specialized in like the things that you like to do and themes that you like to work with, you need to be really clear with your client about, these are the things that I do, these are the reasons you should come to me for like the briefs you should come to me with. Anything else, just don't bother. Right. And so I would seriously doubt that anybody would look at my website and go, oh yeah, let's get some education book for 2 and 3-year-olds and get this guy to illustrate it. That's not going to happen.
Sure.
Right? To be honest, it still does happen every now and then that I get clients, like potential work that is like, yeah, that's not right. That's not right for me. And then in that sense, I just say, yeah, no, sorry, you got the wrong person. Happy to recommend you to the right person if you want. But I'm not the person to do this. I will not enjoy it, and you will not enjoy the work that I created for this.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that then easier said than done if we're talking about, you're starting out, and again, any work is work, so you should probably consider that as well. But there is absolutely this question of how do I get my style into a client's brief is, again, that's why I think that question is the other way around. Does the client's brief fit your style to begin with? If it doesn't, then you're going to have a hard time with that. If it does, then you should be all good, hopefully.
Hopefully?
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Nice. Great advice. We have 2.5 minutes left on this one, on the timer.
Might actually be done now.
Yeah.
I think I might jump to another one.
Okay, cool.
Um,
I have a question for you as well as we transition over.
yep.
From German, Germaine, do you recommend any course to study anatomy and drawing of the human figure? Great question.
Courses, basically any life drawing course, any like figure drawing class is going to do that. Figure drawing classes are the scales of drawing. If you
Scales,
can
as in
draw
like in
musical
terms of
scales,
music.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you know your scales, like they're the most basic exercise. You've got to know those, otherwise you're not going to like really create some interesting stuff. And it will just be that little bit kind of like, it's not working, I'm not sure why. So figure drawing is a massive one. For those of you guys who don't necessarily know, figure drawing is the one where you're drawing a naked person, and so like they try and get as many different kind of models and things as they can to vary the proportions to keep it kind of challenging. Giving her a little pig flag. So that's definitely something to do. Some courses, some art courses will offer it as part of the session. One of the things that is a little bit sad is drawing has dropped off the map significantly for a lot of design schools. They've really stopped implementing drawing for various reasons. So that might be a little bit challenging to find. But places like, if you're in Sydney, for instance, Julian Ashton does life drawing sessions that you don't have to sign up to an actual full-on class for. It's just a session. So you can check that out. But otherwise, what I would seriously recommend, I learned anatomy from this guy. So this guy has a book, which is, he's basically like all animators, anybody who's studying anatomy knows this guy's name. So Bern Hogarth. Very exaggerated anatomy, but very, very strong to learn how to do basic anatomy. And so I would recommend this book. This book right here. So Bern Hogarth, Dynamic Anatomy. That's what the cover looks like. So you can see again, like nobody's knee looks like that. It's very kind of superhero-y kind of stuff. So you might have to tone it down a little bit to get like actual realistic looking people. But really, really awesome to learn sort of how basic structures work. And so he goes into things like this is the basic structure of a skull, and then you can add stuff onto it. Things like this, where it's like a torso looks like this and the shapes go in here. So there's a good amount of like very, very detailed anatomy stuff, because that's bad. And also a little bit more like here's how this works, or here's how like a foot works. So I would seriously recommend this book. It's the one that I used when I was kind of starting out. But otherwise, yeah, a lot of anatomy books are really good to work with. Just Bern Hogarth is the one that's kind of seems to be the gold standard amongst a lot of animators and so on. So yeah.
There's some great other suggestions in chat as well, about figure drawing, some free things to do. Obviously, at the moment we're all at home and staying in, so doing things online and getting the books is a good time for that sort of thing. And there's also probably figure drawing classes all around town. I know there's quite a few in Sydney. I think the Art Hotel does it in Sydney. You have a glass of wine and draw with chalk and stuff.
Yep. There's a bunch of apps as well that allows you to do, like they have like 3D manipulatable characters. They're good for a start. They don't the characters get a bit weird once you start folding them in weird ways, or you want to do some foreshortening and stuff. It gets a little bit funky, but there's some great ones out there as well. I use, just quickly, I'll just jump in and show you guys. I won't launch it, but I never remember the name of it. I use this Art Pose Pro, which is this guy right here.
Cool.
So yeah, I'd recommend that. But again, at the end of the day, life drawing is always going to be the main thing, because you're drawing from life, and it teaches you a lot of different things that you won't necessarily get from just an image in a book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll
All right.
start the next timer.
Yeah.
Start
Let's
next time.
do that one. So we'll start. Let's do one of these ones. We'll start with this one.
Cool. Pigtails.
Uh, yeah, pigtails. And you know what? Let's go a little bit more full Peppa Pig, a little bit less kind of, um, a little bit more down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this pose, like that face is, again, it's a three-quarter face. There's millions of things that you could do with a three-quarter face like this at this angle. As you guys can see, it can be a front-on pose, it can be a back-on pose, depending on where you place the shoulder and the neck kind of twisting. So there's a lot that we can do with this, which is why I've like purposefully taken that specific head to work with. But I'd like to do maybe like, this is Peppa Pig in like a pig car or something. And so what I'm looking at here for reference will be these kind of things. So
Old
the
school
Dragon
Dragon Ball.
Ball like chapters. Like, so in the old books, in the Shonen Jump books, you can see like each Shonen Jump like brings together all these different monthly releases that he used to do. So there did be different chapters, and so the title of each one of these were these illustrations. But he now puts them in the books that are all compiled together. So we're going to do something a little bit like this kind of weird, kind of strange looking kind of car, a little bit cartoony, a little bit fun, and we're going to make it kind of like a pig car kind of thing. And that's going to be
Cool.
our like kind of idea here. So on this one, I've actually got to keep drawing some of the pose to do this. So there's a pot up here of, do I start drawing the basics of the car before I do the rest and like start figuring out how the pose is going to go? Or do I draw the pose and then try and put her in here? I think because the pose is going to be like, the arm can fold in different ways. So I think the best way to approach this is actually going to be for me to draw a basic outline of how this car is going to go and where it's going to sit. And then I can, particularly because her hand is going to need to be on the steering wheel, it's going to be easier if I actually have that steering wheel in the place that it should be, and then her hand can, her arm and hand can bend to match that. So we'll put the steering wheel like here, and so her arm's going to come in and just kind of latch onto that in like that way. So that's kind of set there. We're going to get a little bit kind of cartoony. So let's go and get some really big fat wheels for the front and back, and some smaller ones for the front here. It's probably a little bit too far away because I want it to be a little bit kind of weird and kind of like gummy, not realistic car. Like we just kind of saw, like that wheel is like, the car is almost like bending. It's a little bit kind of like, what's the car's name from Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
The car has a name? Oh, I haven't seen that for ages.
Yeah, his cartoon car that's always a little bit angry. It's real bendy, and like he even just like walks on his wheels at some stage when he's like, he goes through the oh man, I haven't seen this movie in ages. It's all coming back to me now, but I don't remember the names of things, which is a bit annoying. Anyways, might get too sidetracked on that.
Johanna's saying, will we see some Bulma vibes in this one? Yeah, I think there will be.
Probably. Well, by default, we're looking at sort of like Akira Toriyama kind of work. So the artist behind Dragon Balls. So by default, I think we're probably going to see some kind of vibe come into that. Whether that's intended or not, it will definitely come through.
Yeah.
Give her some cool like race pipes, real like flaming exhaust pipes kind of thing. Could be cool. A little bit of a number on the side of the car. She's kind of driving a little race car.
Stefano was saying, I'm imagining her in a tank shooting baby pigs. Oh gosh.
Well, we can actually do this one. Might actually be good for this one here, the
A
salute
tank.
one.
Oh
We'll
yeah.
put a
Oh
tank in
yeah.
that for sure.
Okay.
Let's do that. I like that suggestion.
Tank next.
Um,
German was
can you
asking,
go on the
what's
camera?
the anime show that has influenced your work the most?
Um,
Dragon Balls. Dragon Ball.
yeah, Dragon Ball for sure. I know it's very like it's kind of like could you pick anything any more mainstream? Um, but I think the important thing here for me is that it's not Dragon Ball Z,
Mm.
which is cool and it's fun, but it starts to get a little bit kind of like, how much power can you have? I can destroy entire planets by blinking. It's a little bit kind of like, okay, still kind of cool to watch, but a little bit less of that quirk of the original Dragon Ball before he goes all like, transformations and Super Saiyans and like,
Yeah.
this is my Super Saiyan 5000 and it's the blue and it's the thing and it's like oh, okay, it's
Right.
getting a little bit repetitive.
This is never anybody's
Uh,
final form.
yeah, exactly.
There's always
Like,
something around
oh,
the corner.
exactly. I thought this was my final form and everybody's kind of drawers dropping, but actually there was one other one that nobody knew about. And it's like, really? Okay. Um, but the OG series, where it was a little bit more quirky, it's a little bit more akin to Professor Slump, is just a heaps more fun. It's a little kind of weird random dog people and weird Tyrannosaurus Rexes roaming the land. It's all just kind of like,
Mhm.
what the hell is going on here? And it's just so much more fun.
Yeah.
That I think has had a lot more of an impact on me than the OG one, the sort of the Dragon Ball Z
Dragon
one.
Ball Z. Yep.
Yeah. In saying that, we're talking about that question of like, what's a good reference to learn how to draw? I learned how to draw. I learned some basic anatomy from Dragon Ball. Now,
Mm.
I'm not suggesting that you should learn anatomy from watching that because obviously Dragon Balls is exaggerated. It's a cartoon. Even the figures that I've drawn here, they're not realistic. Like the head's too big, the legs are a little bit too long. Like these are not realistic human beings.
Mm.
And so it's important to kind of make that distinction of like heavily stylized versus realistic is, something that you want to be aware of when you're learning how to draw is you want to learn how to draw the correct way, the right anatomy.
Mm.
Then you can go ahead and stylize it, but you need to know the right thing before you can add style to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Amanda's saying she was more into Robotech and Macross. I didn't know
Yeah,
Macross. I knew Robotech. That's cool. It's 80s, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
all
80s.
those like yeah, a little bit. Macross is really cool as well. I do have a bit of a Mecha Soul streak as well sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe if we have time, we'll see that come out in this stream today. But yeah, things like Appleseed or Gundam or Patlabor, all those kind of different mangas that existed in kind of like 80s and 90s
Mm.
is definitely where like most of my references will sit, rather than the Naruto or One Piece, which are awesome. Like I really enjoy watching One Piece, but I get less out of it than I would watching a Pat Labor or like City Hunter or any other kind of things.
Mm. And there was a question from Vince. Hey, Jeremy, is learning how to draw realistically better at first when you're a beginner? Because some say it's better if you want to learn manga style.
Well, it's what I was just talking about, right? So
Mm.
it's the if you look at like it's like somebody like Picasso, for instance, like heavily stylized, who is effectively he's an illustrator. Yeah, the difference between fine art and illustration we could talk about for ages, and so we won't. But he's an illustrator, and so his work, the whole cubism thing, is heavily stylized. Obviously, not to proportions. That's his whole thing, is like breaking the perspective and the proportions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at his sketchbooks, they're filled with really detailed, realistic drawings of human anatomy. You'd be forgiven to think that this is a sketchbook by like Da Vinci or something, or like
Right.
Michelangelo, because it is that kind of like very realistic, detailed kind of thing. And so always, if you're going to learn the right way. Learn learn how the things are actually meant to look, and then you can go in and see if you can stylize them or if you can add a different kind of thing to it. But if you're going to learn immediately, if you don't know how to draw and you're going to learn how to draw from watching manga only, and you're going to draw manga people, then you're only ever going to draw manga stuff. And that can be okay if that's all you ever intend on doing, but it's not real human proportion. Manga is a stylized thing. Do not learn how to draw from only doing stylized stuff, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's a little bit like, I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's a little bit like if you were like how you and I speak in English is different to how somebody learns how to speak in English. And you get that thing often when somebody's learning a language and they ask you, and it's like, oh, I don't even know that rule. I just like, that's how I do the thing. Because they're learning the actual thing. And then you can go out and do the stylized version of it, which is what we speak on an everyday basis, which is, saying things like good day instead of good day is a bit of an Aussie thing. But if you only learn like good day is how you say good day in English, it's like, well, no, it's not. You have to say good day, and then that gets stylized and shortened down to something else.
Right.
But yeah, so a bit of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that kind of clears it up. So yeah, definitely learn how to do things properly first, I guess, and then you can learn the stylized version of that thing.
I was stunned that you didn't go for a food analogy. Doesn't happen very often.
I was trying to find one, but it didn't come.
It's like baking a cake. Awesome. It's about 7.5 minutes left on this one, guys. We need some suggestions.
Oh, I need to do her arm. So, all right. So the hand on the steering wheel, I've lowered the steering wheel a little bit just to kind of fit a little bit more with what we were doing. But let's do the hand on the steering wheel. Again, like how I'm drawing this hand right now is maybe not the best way to do it. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So again, I think in this case, it hasn't worked at all. Like that's not great at all. That arm is not working at all. So this is where I might actually get some reference, right? I might actually try and find a photo of a hand on a steering wheel, or take my own photo if I can't find one, and use that as a reference. But it's going to be important to try and see like how all this is going to kind of come together. Maybe that's not the right angle on the hand. So again, don't be afraid to, like start over on something like that. That's better. That's probably going to be a better angle on that arm into the hand, where it's kind of coming down onto the hand rather than up. So what I was trying to do before is arm going into hand, and then the hand is like kind of resting on the steering wheel like this kind of thing, which is fine. What I'm doing now is I've changed it to this, and it's actually going to be kind of holding the steering wheel a little bit more kind of down than up. And that's going to allow me to get that arm out to here and then bring it up into the shoulder there. That's better. And then we can see the thumb and the fingers coming in around that. Getting the right angle on the thumb is always a tricky one. Like remembering which way a thumb is pointing can always be a bit of a fun thing. And that's where you need to get some reference in here. So Fingers are going to go here. Thumb is on the inside, so that's going to come in over there. It can very quickly turn to hell if you're like, if on this hand, for instance, if that hand is like flipped and the thumb is on the outside, and so the hand looks kind of like this, and it sticks onto that, it's like, what, something's not quite right with that, but I'm not sure what it is. And so sometimes I'll use, and actually we can flip to this, like I will look at these kind of things. So I've got one of those. I think Dale mentioned these guys.
He did actually, yeah, yesterday on the stream. Yep, might have a similar little person.
Yeah. So I will use those quite frequently, or I'll take a photo of my own hand or look in a mirror. You see animators do that quite often as well, like looking into mirrors to see how the face looks and all that kind of stuff. All these things are important because they mean that you get the actual dimensions right. So definitely a solid kind of thing to do. And then we can make, it's a tiny little car. Her knees are going to come up.
There's a suggestion for a like 1950s headscarf or leather jacket as well. Just giving you throwing some more stuff in there.
1950s headscarf. Oh, you mean like a Grace Kelly, like one of these things?
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry, I was on the wrong tool there. One of these things, yeah.
That's what I guess, yeah.
And then it can kind of be flying off of her. And that's going to hide her pigtails. But you know what? It doesn't have to. We can
have little
make holes in the scarf for the pigtails. And that can kind of work that way. That's pretty cool. I like that. I don't mind that at all.
I missed it as you were explaining the hand thing, but Amanda was saying, I think during that time, you could draw her waving instead of, waving instead with the left hand on the steering wheel. Do you ever, that's a really good point. Do you ever do that and you're like, oh, this angle's not really working, so I'm gonna change it up in that sense? Like this, either sort of illustrate your way out, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I will. Sometimes I'll do this where it's just like it doesn't work, so I try and do something else. Maybe she's not driving, right? Like maybe she just has her arm like hanging off the edge of the car here, like just something like this, for instance. Whoops. Where it's just holding on to the edge of the door.
Yeah.
And it's there. Obviously, she's too low. She's too high up for that to work in this one. But she could just not be driving the car, and then there's a little pig next to her who is driving the car, and that's just like she's sitting in the driver's seat. Or like, for instance, if that arm isn't working, then she could be, that arm could just sit inside the car, and then there's another hand coming from the other side. In this instance, I think it's probably going to be better if she's like, she's just got her hand here and she's kind of waving or something. And that hand can come from the other side.
Cool.
This is also sometimes I need to slow down, and it's something I was watching a documentary with Hayao Miyazaki, and it shows him kind of drawing his characters. I have a tendency to do this quite a bit, where it's just like sketching and trying to get the thing to be really fast, and then you end up just drawing lines and lines and lines and lines, and it's like, no. Rather than do that so quickly, have a think about what you're doing and where things are going, and just slow the drawing down a little bit and work to those proportions, and you'll see something a lot kind of easier is going to happen. I'm not loving the angle on that hand. I think that probably needs to be at a bit more of an angle.
We've got a minute left on the clock, by the way. I've been neglecting my clock duties.
Timekeeper.
I know.
That's better. There's a little bit more of an angle on that hand. Just
give him
a bit of a side. Yeah, exactly.
Wave.
And again, that's probably not going to be in the right spot, so that needs to kind of come in there so that the arm will be in the right kind of angle. Yeah, that's still not great. Zooming in and out is is a big thing as well, just to make sure that all that's correct. Yeah, I'm not loving this. This is again is where I would stop and just go, you know what, I can't crack this on my own. So let me just do this and get a photograph and then use that.
Right.
I'm hating this. I'm going to get rid of it because it's annoying me. And we're just going to do something else, something that I'm a little bit more familiar with. And that's going to fit with what we're doing. Yeah, that's
I thought it was going to be a single finger
great.
then. And I'm glad it was two. Glad it was victory.
Give her a little bit of a collar. Finish off the rest of her clothes. Important to be actually clothed. Give her a little bit of a racing jacket, actually. Do one of these like shoulder pads. There we go. A little bit of a thing on the side, on the shoulder there, a little badge, and a stripe down the middle. And we're all good.
Nice.
And so that's our like racer Peppa Pig car. Let's do that tank now.
Oh yeah, the tank idea. That's super cool.
I'm feeling that.
I like it. Yeah.
Move this one down out of the way and grab this guy and move him up to here. All right.
Are you cool with the timer? Do you want to take a sip of water or something? Do you want to take a break?
Yeah.
Take a sip of water.
I can
Cool.
talk and draw.
Talk and draw.
Talk and chalk. Yeah, I'm going to need some reference here because I'd love to. There's this thing where Akira Toriyama did a lot of these like World War II kind of things. He was fascinated with like World War II stuff. So he does a lot of this kind of stuff. So I want to do a bit of maybe like a World War II tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am going to jump in and type in like the old patterned World War II tank and see what we get. Yeah, that's what I'm after. It's like old school American kind of weird looking thing, almost like this.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. I think that's still the one that we're kind of looking at. Let's see if we can.
They were built quite cartoony, weren't they? Those original.
Yeah. The American ones looked a little bit kind of like almost a bit comical. That's good. I think I might grab that one. So often what I'll do is I'll just like literally just pop that in as a reference that I can have on the sides. Flip it around because she is looking the wrong way, and just use that on the side there. And I will also lock it because I have this tendency to start drawing on that layer, and then half an hour into the sketch, I'm like, I am loving this, and it's like, oh no, I've been drawing on the flat JPEG this whole time. What have I done?
I'm going to kick that timer in.
Let's go.
See, I gave you the reference time for free, because I'm a generous god.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Steve's saying, man, that movie Tank Girl is so good. I haven't seen that for ages. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think actually there's like, it's even this one here has got a little bit of a tank girly kind of vibe, like future punk kind of thing. So yeah, I want to maybe like see if we can get that going in there. I recently bought the entire books of Tank Girl, and I was just reading through them. I was like, man, I forgot how awesome these things were.
Totally.
All right.
Just before you get stuck into it, Amanda was saying she's loving these. Hope you take them to completion. So I assume she means like coloring them and things like that.
Yeah. I'll probably take these and see how we go, and just kind of take these to finished states. Thanks for the comment. So she's just going to be like, basically she's sitting like, she's sitting here, right, and just kind of like riding at the top of the tank, and just kind of driving along. So she's going to be kind of holding on to that. So that tank's going to be coming out at us a little bit. And again, like how much you use your reference, like how much of that reference you have to stick to. This is where things can get a little bit tricky, because on using photographic reference, it can be tempting to have something that's going to be quite photographic. But as with the other illustrations that I've done, like this one is quite sort of gummy, it's quite cartoony. So I want that same quality on this one. So I'm going to have to draw things quite quickly to stop myself from getting too detailed, right? So I'm just really going to punch this in super quick. Get that cannon in, and that's going to start to be the basic framework of what I'm trying to do. So that shape is there. Shorten things down, make it a little bit kind of like boxy, almost like a toy, and then we can get those tracks in there as well.
Love to see like little hoof prints behind the tracks of the tank.
Yeah, it could be. Actually, I think I dig the idea, again, in keeping with that like Akira Toriyama kind of theme that we're talking about, where things are like screeching, or like, see how that's like bent? Like there's a real like cool bend on that from the momentum, or something like this where it's jumping. I think I'm going to try and get that same kind of vibe here, where it's going that fast that it's like kind of jumping off the ground a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that could be super cool. And then little kind of like puff of smoke, as in it's kind of chugging along. So again, the reason why I've done this like really quickly is to keep that kind of action going and not getting stagnated and getting it to be too realistic. Because I really want to try and get that like weird kind of gumminess, like again, like we were just seeing on this one, like that's been kind of bent out of proportion a little bit. It's got that real kind of cool quality to it. So I want to try and get that same thing in here. And again, we can riff on this in a little while and see kind of how it all kind of pans out. I'm starting to feel like maybe the tank was a bad idea because of the insane amount of work I'm going to have to put into drawing the tracks inside. That's going to be lots of stuff to draw, but what the hell? Let's just see how we go. So again, here, like I've got this reference of that tank, and like the wheels in here are got this like weird kind of trifecta kind of thing, which like you have to, one of the things I always want to kind of ask myself when I'm doing this is the general idea of what a tank is and what a tank looks like is not so much this stuff. Like this is not as common in a tank. Most people, if you ask them to draw a tank, would not necessarily think of this. The most obvious one is wheels at the front, like at the top bits here, and then a bunch of wheels in the middle. So and then that can kind of be quite simple. Let's keep it quite simple and a little bit more cartoony, and going to communicate more as like people are going to see that and be like, oh yeah, that's a tank. That's what a tank looks like. I've seen that before.
So you're kind of drifting away from your reference a bit there, like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which again, like I've completely like messed with the proportions on this anyway, so it doesn't really matter what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get that, like things like, oh yeah, that kind of tank there has like this weird round bit because that kind of swivels up and down, right? So stuff like that is important to get for that kind of reference look of like, oh yeah, cool, that's what that looks like. And then there's a little like hook, like metal hook on the side there. Think about like these kind of plates that we're seeing, so I can add those in there as well and kind of get that look of like, oh yeah, I've seen stuff like this before. That all works quite well. Some of them have like that huge antenna there. We can either pop that here or it can be at the back. Like there's a range of different things that I can mess around with here. that I can really play with. Oh, hello, my brush has done some strange things real quick. So this is one of those Wacom quirks where every now and then my brush stops working with pressure.
Can't handle the pressure,
yeah, it can't handle the pressure, no. Not sure why it does this.
So is it just doesn't detect the pressure for a while? So it's just a
no.
solid?
Yeah, it's just a really kind of like straight, thick line. Usually what I have to do is quit Photoshop and start again, but let's not go there right now. Whatever, I can handle this. It's all good. We can keep doing this. Hopefully it won't affect my drawing too much. So just adding in some details here. Can put like a nice like American World War II insignia on the side there. Give it some headlights. Usually there's like they have a bunch of stuff, like usually on the sides here there'll be like a shovel or something, to like all these like little details that are kind of cool to get as reference that you might not necessarily think about when you're drawing this. So all those little bits and pieces are going to be the things that make your illustration come to life a little bit more, look a little bit more real than just a plain tank. Like again, I'm going to put a little one of those kind of shovels tied onto the front here. I've seen that before on tanks, so that kind of makes sense for me to do that on this one. Yep, that's cool. I don't mind that. Could add some more random bits and bobs back here. Like these are all, again, like these are all the things that it's like, what is that? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It looks tanky, so we're good.
Looks tanky.
Yeah. I could also put like one of the little, some of them have a little like added machine gun turret on the side here. But again, this is where like I could add this in here, right? So just pop that in there and add that into the mix. A bunch of holes in there, so like that kind of old school 50 cal kind of machine gun. But that's going to maybe get in the way of her. So I need to add some stuff onto her to get that feeling of detail. So first things first is I might actually move her back a little bit to like here. And then I can come in and say there's a hand coming in here. Cool, my brush is back to normal again.
Hey, the brush is back. Yeah, it's funny. Amanda was just saying, the lack of sensitivity is driving you nuts. It must be driving you nuts.
Yeah, look, I obviously, like I'm managing, but it's just all of a sudden things feel a little bit more, like less sketchy. They have less of that kind of sketchy look.
It was good. It was a very clever way to show us like the value of pressure sensitivity and the value of using a stylus. So we just took a very quick departure. Yeah, it was very clever of you. Your acting was fantastic, actually, more than anything else. I totally believe that something went wrong, but yeah, it was flawless. Very clever.
Thank you. So hand is a little bit too big, actually, my liking, and it's in maybe a weird spot. So let's move that down to there, and we can start to add some things in. So this is where we're going to maybe try a couple of different things, right? So I might actually start a new layer. So first thing I'm going to do is go, let's have a look real quick at another little reference, and we're going to look at World War II GI helmets. Yeah, and we're trying to get that kind of American GI helmet look. again, you always want to do this and like tracing is always a bad thing, right? You don't want to trace because then you've learnt nothing. You haven't learned how to draw the thing. But using one that's at the more or less appropriate angle for you is going to be a massive help. So this one's on that kind of similar like 3/4 kind of look. So I can use that one. And I'm going to name my layer here helmet, not helmet, whatever, doesn't matter. And then so we can get that kind of feeling in there. It's a really weird shape where it's got that bend in the middle here.
Yeah.
That comes in. But again, if we get that right, it'll really kind of start to come together quite well. So trying to get that angle of that helmet right. Lots of lines. Stop it, Jeremy. Don't do so many lines. Damn you. Again, this is where maybe liquefy is going to be a cool one. This is like, again, if we always like to do this a little bit, but Adobe, if you're listening, having the image underneath so that I can see the actual angle of the helmet on the face would be really helpful.
Like to see the other layers.
To see the other layers on here would be like absolutely glorious, because now I'm kind of just doing it blindly and hoping that when it finishes, it's like, oh yeah, that worked. So being able to see those would be really, really awesome. So yeah, I'm not too unhappy with that. There's maybe a few things that could still kind of be worked on a little bit, but I'm getting that kind of World War II vibe, which is what I wanted. Add that strap in. So this kind of thing is like, I've seen these kind of helmets before, but adding things in like this little bag up here on the helmet, it's like, cool. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, what is that?
Doesn't matter. Definitely that strap is going to be a cool one to add in there. And then the chin strap on there, we could either like attach it, or maybe it's not attached, as in
maybe it's loose
a little bit. She's not as, safety oriented. She isn't strapped on her helmet properly, but it just gives the whole thing a bit more movement as well. Like it gives it the pose a bit more action, to have that thing kind of dangling and flying around. So that could be kind of fun as well. Do that net. Get that kind of...
Got 6 minutes left on the clock, by the way.
Cool. So that's helmet that's like headpiece number 1. Oops, sorry. I've got my layers confused. Here we go. Up a little bit. So yeah, that's first helmet. I'm just going to add in a uniform as well, just to kind of get that going. A little bit of kind of shoulder pads, sleeve. Going to erase where the hand is saluting, just so we can actually see it behind the helmet. So we're just doing the uniform now and making sure that's in there because that's going to be in basically all the different versions that I'm going to do anyways. So that's going to be an important one to add in. Could do the little World War II dog tags. So we could kind of add in, give us some little like military paint as well.
Are they hog tags?
Yeah, they're the little hog tags. Yeah,
hog tags.
I really wish we could see her shoulders so I can give her a little like shoulder insignia kind of thing, but that's just, the pose won't lend itself to that, so not going to happen today, unfortunately.
Do you ever use the free transform tool rather than liquefy? Amanda was saying she uses that out of habit.
Yep, I would sometimes do that. I just find that for what we were doing with that liquefy tool, the liquefy tool has a little bit more control over it, but you can definitely do this, and then I would use warp, and then we can kind of like warp things around. But it's a little bit harder to get that the right way. So helmet number 2 could be a little bit more of like, hang on, my brush is doing the same thing again. And now it's back to being normal again.
Encore.
The joys. So maybe a little bit more of an actual appropriate tank helmet where she's got the ear mufflers in there as well. So that's kind of like built in. And then we probably want some goggles on there too. The salute hand might have to go. Like the more stuff I add to this, to the top of her head, the hand saluting might start to mean that I can't give that much information at the top. So that might be one of the things that goes away eventually. So that's a little bit more accurate, like to have that kind of tank helmet. Or again, it could be that classic kind of like more of a uniform thing where it's the little, like, I don't know what those hats are called, the little like weird triangle hat, like this one that goes at the top there, like officers in uniform. It's not for like combat.
It's from Star Wars.
But it is from Star Wars. So it could be something like that. Again, like all these different variations that we can kind of play around with.
Yeah.
If I was doing this for a client, one of the things I might do if I'm kind of digging this is just take this and make a copy of it. So grab that and then grab this guy with it and just move him over to here. On the side, and that means that I can still have both in there, but my client can see like, hey, here's another option that you can have if you want for this thing. That will like potentially allow you to give your client a few more options in there. So that's kind of that one. If we're kind of having it a bit more fun, we might put some stickers all over the tank. Put some references to different things on there, and like, you know, we were talking about Tank Girl, make it a little bit more kind of tank girly, and add in a whole bunch of, it's a fun tank. It's a fun tank. We've got, you know, stickers and things, and it's a little bit more kind of pop arty, and again, maybe there's a little kind of pig sitting on the back of it, or maybe the tank will be pink when it's finished. So maybe that pig is sitting on the back and he's kind of facing the other way.
That's a good point, Festus. Yeah, saluting is done with the right hand, not the left. That's true. You might need to flip it. That's an easy fix.
Easy fix. Indeed.
Amanda was, Luke was saying add a rank as well. We were talking about that with the shoulders, weren't we?
So I can't really do that on this because the shoulders aren't visible. So any rank that I add, there we go. Now it's historically accurate.
There we go. Matt was saying you could change the arm to like a punch in the fist in the sky. That might help the salute details as well. So yeah, that's a lot of what we were talking about. You can kind of change those features very, very quickly as you're going, especially in the sketch phase. So you can explore like different options in different ways. And that's why sketching and getting feedback is good, because then it's like, oh yeah, wrong hand. Cool. Change that to the right hand.
Yeah. And then, you know, it can be like, obviously I'd have to flip this back and change it up. But if I wanted to really kind of show that rank, then maybe this is the hand, like the other hand is the salute hand, and that's coming in here. And then I don't have to worry so much about drawing all the fingers in. So that could be a little kind of hack for me to do. So she's saluting with the hand that's kind of going away. And then this hand is the one that's driving the tank. And then I can have the military kind of insignia on the side there. All those kind of things can definitely be things that you can mess around with when you're doing all of this. So again, it's all about that kind of like version control and seeing what works best for the illustration. Where can you find that information, and where can you kind of add it in there, if that makes sense.
So we were pretty close with our timing so far, but we've probably got about 15 minutes left on the clock now. So just to give you a heads up, so we don't get cut off. So I've put the timer for 15 now, so that's begun.
Right.
I'd love to hear from the audience at some point. Which one, like if you could only finish one, like which one would you go for?
Yeah.
Interested to hear your idea,
might work on
Jeremy,
this
and
one.
also, as you work on that last one, like maybe we can get some feedback. I'm interested in you, Jeremy, like which one you think is working the most, if you could only pick one, and also the audience as well.
This is my problem, right? So I had this one up before. So this is a brief that I did for a client some time back. And I did all these different versions of the head to show the client, and it's just like I really could just not decide.
Yeah.
This is my curse as well when I'm doing this. It's one of the downsides of being a digital artist is like, man, I love them all, and I really want to like push them all a bit further. And so the client then decides what that one is. But I suppose, like giving yourself a brief on this kind of stuff is important, and which one fits the brief the most. In this instance, they all kind of fit that's like cyberpunk vibe that we're going for. So then it's down to the client, and the client gets what they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you had to ask me, like I'd probably say the tank, and then I'd look at the space girl and be like, but I really like that as well. It's kind of fun. But yeah, I think I'd say maybe the tank, just because I'm a sucker for detail and adding in lots of little references, and that tank is just like is ripe for adding a bunch of different things in there. Even like a Terminator reference where maybe there's like a skull underneath here and it's like crushing the skull, and you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff could be like super fun to add in as we go. So I'd probably say that tank, but realistically, I'm probably going to do all of them up in a little bit later. So
Johanna's thrown in a straw poll, so that's cool. So it looks like tank is winning, but yeah, let us know in the straw poll. You can just quickly jump in there and click which one you like. We'll see what we get at the end.
Cool. All right, so let's do this one. So this one here is obviously not a full body pose. I've got a few in here that aren't full body poses. I might just make my canvas a little bit bigger. Oops, not like that. Like this.
What's the shortcut to make the canvas bigger that you just did then? Do you remember?
I'm using the crop tool.
Oh, right. Yep.
So the crop tool is a little bit counterintuitive because crop usually means take away from your image.
That's right.
But in this instance, crop is going to be adding to the image. So I'm just adding to the image up here, just so that I can like move this one up here, and I've got a little bit of room. This is actually a little bit of a sketching tip for all of you guys is when you're doing a drawing, sometimes it can be really handy to, like when you've got, it's like, say this is your page, right? So you got your sketchbook. Sometimes it can be handy to actually draw a frame inside that page and then start your drawing inside here. Because it means that if you want to go outside of that, you can, because it gets into the page. One of the tendencies that artists have when they start getting to the edge of the page is like say like the edge of the page is just here. This is a little bit silly in terms of framing. It's like their hand is just cut off of the edge of the page.
Right.
So the tendency is going to be like, oh, you know what? Let me just cram this in there and see, like I would just want to fit it in. And then that's just like, no, this is just not okay. So we have this tendency to really just go like, get it fitted all into the page. So drawing that frame around just means that you've got that little bit of buffer room that you're not going to do that. So me moving this drawing up here is going to allow me to have a little bit more room to breathe on this one and see like how that all kind of goes. So important to just give yourself that little bit of extra room when you're doing this. All right, we're going to change the hair up on this one, and because she's got a bit of a fighting pose, might give her a little bit of a mohawk. Like obviously it's going to be a manga mohawk, so lots of big spiky bits coming off of it. Yeah, that's not bad.
It's more of a wasteland vibe almost immediately
Yeah.
because of the mohawk.
Okay, so suggestions. What is she doing? She's got a power pose. Is she like a magician and she's got like power things coming off of her fists? Is she
Hmm.
got like some mech suit on? What's the deal with her?
We'll take the first. We'll take the first viable mention in chat. I think because you don't have long. You've got like 9.5 minutes. So we'll
Cool.
let us know. First in, best dressed. I think.
Challenge accepted. Yeah, that's not good at all. Still not.
Rallying the troops. Mecca. Two separate.
Yep.
Mecca is yeah.
So
It
like a
could-
mecha suit.
Yeah, I think so. That's your interpretation. I'm just a conduit. I'm a conduit for chat. Yeah, you can totally see like rallying the troops, almost like an Overwatch style thing there. Like you're holding the flag
Yep.
and bringing everybody in. The robot legs and gloves.
So holding the flag in this hand.
It's up to you. She looks electric. Yeah, Aaron. Yeah, that's a good point. Pirate themed. With a pig hoof shaped eye patch. It kind of makes me
The eye
think that
patch.
she's like commandeered a real pig and severed the hoof and used it as an eye patch.
Yep.
This is a dark timeline of the Spider-Verse.
Of the Peppa Pig verse.
Yeah. Peppa Pig verse, yeah, exactly. Second, the pirate. Well, there's a lot of ideas there.
Okay, I need to get moving on this quickly. Again, some of this stuff is not resolved, but we'll come back to that. Okay, so let's start adding in some of that detail. So we got eye patch. I love the eye patch suggestion. So we'll stick an eye patch on her here. And then we can go in and get rid of the eye inside that. She's got that flag flying. It's a little bit kind of torn because it's been through a bit of battle. Again, it's like every illustration kind of tells a bit of a story. And kind of trying to figure out that story is right is always a kind of a fun thing to do, and it's definitely the right approach to what you guys need to think about. That flag is probably not on the right angle though. I think it's probably better. There we go. That's better. Yeah. Awesome. Give her a little earpiece as well, make it a little bit more kind of, again, like I really dig the cyberpunk vibe, so we'll just give her a little bit of a cyberpunk kind of earpiece and maybe some like head implants or something like that. That can start to get out of control very quickly, so again, moderation is going to be key here. But yeah, give her a little, you know what, actually that could be a little big skull. I don't know how a pig skull looks,
What would a
but
pig skull look like? Yeah.
let's say that this is what a pig skull looks like. Looks like a pig squid.
I like
Oh,
it.
well. Weird coin purse. Get a bit of a Chun-Li reference in now. Sometimes it can be really awesome to just go like completely crazy and see what happens, and just give her these just like huge spike bracelets.
Yeah,
And see
Johanna
how
was
that kind
saying like a World of Warcraft kind of style thing, and that's very much a World of Warcraft spiky, ridiculous spikes kind of popping out.
Yeah, and again, like if we like where that's going, give her a shoulder pad and then do the same thing here. It's also this, like, again, it's that tightrope walk of like, these guys are going to start to leach a lot of the details that maybe I could add into this further on down the track. So important to kind of keep things balanced. But if we make her just like everything spike, it could be fun, but it could also kind of kill the illustration because it's just not, there's not room for anything else to happen in here. So yeah, just something to kind of be aware of when you're doing this. Give her a little cyberpunk vest kind of jacket thing.
Yeah, eye patch is a winner. Yep. Loving the eye patch.
Yeah, I did the eye
patch.
I think it's quite cool. Yeah. Better give us some clothes as well. Always good. Give us some pants, like cyberpunky kind of pants.
Vote for leather pants and big boots.
Yeah. That's what I think I'm feeling as well. Big belt buckle on the pants, and she's got like a what side should that go on? I think I'm gonna give her like a big like knife or something on the side of the leg here. Yeah, cool.
She could be coming out of the water. That's an interesting point. Yeah, she could be.
Yep. So leather pants is always a fun one to do once you start rendering this, because rendering the shine on the leather is always a super like sort of tricky, interesting thing to work with. I mean, you get it right, it looks amazing, but it's very easy to not get right as well.
Like a balance between making it look like plastic and, you know, not doing enough to show the reflection and everything.
So coming out of the water, so let's give her a little bit of a splash, maybe.
So just to give you a heads up with the timer, we are getting pretty close to done, about a minute and a half left, and then I think we should just spend a minute or two kind of recapping and having a look at them all.
Yep.
I think.
Cool. So let's do that real quick. Let's do this wave, and that'll save me drawing the legs, which is always a handy thing to do. So
pig belt buckle, that's a good idea.
Great idea. Great. That's cool. Like that. Maybe she's had a few battles, got some scars on her.
Got some hoof scars.
Yeah. That should have a scar on it too, that eye patch eye.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I want to almost... we don't have necessarily enough time to do this at this stage, but I was thinking maybe if I did this right, I could have her kind of, one foot is like, that's her knee coming out at us, and one foot's sitting on like a rock,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other foot is in the water, and then there's like a wave coming around, like splashing onto that rock. But yeah, I don't have enough time
That's right.
to do that properly. But again, it's one of those tricks as well. Like sometimes like people might notice, for instance, like a lot of Miyazaki's characters tend to wear like long dresses or cloaks or any of those kind of things. Like not necessarily the main characters, but if you look at like Tales of Earthsea, for instance, which is Miyazaki's son and his animation, the main characters all have like giant cloaks. It's a easy way to not have to draw the legs and animate them, because then all you're left with is this kind of figure. And so doing these kind of things means that all the stuff that happens inside that cloak, you don't have to draw or worry about or any of those kind of things. So again, same thing here. Like if I was like, oh, you know what, I can't figure out how to draw the feet here and there. Who cares? Just draw it. Draw the wave coming out over this, and then you don't have to worry about that. So all these kind of little tips and tricks that you guys can think about to either cut corners but not make it obvious that you're cutting corners can always be like really helpful. That giant thing is not doing it for me. So let's do that instead and give her a giant cutlass coming out of her back. So she's a big space pirate. Let's look at...
We are out of time, my friend.
Okay.
As much as I want to see the cutlass.
I'll finish these up and post them a little bit later on as well for those of you guys who are keen. But yeah.
Awesome.
That's it. So yeah,
let's zoom out and look at all of them together and yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So I was hoping I would do 6 of these, but I ended up not doing 6 of these. I only did 4.
I think 4 was pretty ambitious. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And thanks, chat, for all of your input as well. It's gone in some pretty interesting directions there. It's been lots of fun hanging out with all of you guys today.
To do all this kind of stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. And if you want to have your own go, tag us or just hashtag Adobe Live that and tag Jeremy in it, and we'd love to see it. And we'll check it out, and maybe we'll show it on the next stream if you do have a go. So super keen to see what you come up with. Jeremy, it's been amazing hanging out with you again.
Thanks.
We did sneak peek a little bit. Jeremy's going to be back. We're going to do a bit of a series on illustration, like a couple of episodes from the beginning of illustration if you're just getting started to some more kind of intermediate tutorial based stuff. So Jeremy's working on that at the moment. Some of that stuff like creating brushes, liquify tool, we were talking about that. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth into those details and pick Jeremy's mind for some of that stuff.
Yeah, we'll look at like mixing watercolors in Photoshop and working with a bunch of different styles and things in Photoshop for illustration, basically.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. It's been a wonderful morning and have a great day. Bye.
Cheers. See you next time.